Welcome everyone to Restaurant Experiences. I'm Mike, and today we're going to master the art of dining out.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, and I have to tell you, I had the most interesting restaurant experience last weekend that taught me so much about dining etiquette.
Oh, this sounds like a great story. Before we dive into your adventure, let's talk about the basics. Many of our listeners might be nervous about dining out in English-speaking countries.
Absolutely. I remember when I first moved here, I was terrified of restaurants. The vocabulary, the etiquette, the tipping, it all seemed so overwhelming.
That's completely normal. So let's start with the very beginning, making a reservation. Sarah, how did you handle that for your recent dinner?
Well, I called this upscale Italian restaurant called Bella Not around 2 p.m. I was nervous, but I had practiced the phrase beforehand. I said, "Hello, I'd like to make a reservation for 2 people for tonight at 7:30 p.m., please."
That's a perfect way to start. What did the hostess say back to you?
She asked me several questions that I wasn't prepared for. First, she said, "What name should I put the reservation under?" Then she asked, "Would you prefer a booth or a table?" I had to ask her to repeat the second question because I didn't know what a booth was.
That's a great learning moment. For our listeners, a booth is those cozy seating areas with high backs and cushioned seats, usually more private than regular tables.
Exactly. I learned that the hard way. I said, "Could you explain what a booth is?" And the hostess was very patient. She explained it perfectly. Then she confirmed, "So that's 2 people at 7:30 p.m. under Sarah, and you'd like a booth. We have availability. See you tonight."
That's wonderful. You know what? Let's actually practice a reservation call right now. I'll be the restaurant hostess, and Sarah, you can guide our listeners through what to say. Ready?
Great idea. Okay, listeners, when the phone is answered, wait for the greeting, then clearly state your request.
Good afternoon, Bella Not Restaurant. This is Jessica speaking. How may I help you today?
Now you would say, "Hello, I'd like to make a reservation, please." Go ahead, listeners, practice saying that out loud.
Of course, I'd be happy to help you with that. For what date and time would you like the reservation?
Perfect. Now you specify. For this Saturday at 7 p.m., please. Always be specific with the date and time.
Let me check our availability. How many people will be in your party?
Notice she said, "Party." That means your group. You'd answer, "4 people, please." Or, "A party of 4.
Excellent. We do have availability. May I have your name for the reservation?
Give your last name and spell it if it's unusual. Like Johnson. That's Johnsson.
Got it, Mr. Johnson. Would you prefer indoor or outdoor seating? We have a lovely patio area.
This is where you can ask questions if you're unsure. You might say, "What's the weather supposed to be like?" Or simply choose, "Indoor seating, please."
Perfect. So I have you down for a party of 4 this Saturday at 7 p.m. for indoor seating. Can I have a phone number in case we need to contact you?
Always provide a number where you can be reached. Say it slowly and clearly.
Thank you. Your reservation is confirmed. We look forward to seeing you Saturday at 7 p.m. Is there anything special we should know? Any allergies or special occasions?
This is important. Mention any dietary restrictions or celebrations. You might say, "Yes, it's my wife's birthday. Or, one person in our group has a nut allergy.
How wonderful. We'll make a note of that. We'll see you Saturday evening. Have a great day.
And you'd end with, thank you very much. See you Saturday. That's it. Great job, everyone.
That was excellent practice. Now, let's go back to your actual experience. You arrived at the restaurant. What happened with the reservation mix-up?
Right. When I walked in, there was a hostess stand at the front. I approached and said, "Hi, I have a reservation for 2 under Sarah at 7:30. But here's where it got interesting. She couldn't find my reservation in their system."
Oh no. That must have been stressful. How did you handle that situation?
I tried to stay calm and polite. I said, "I'm certain I made a reservation this afternoon. I spoke with someone around 2 p.m. Could you please check again?" The hostess was apologetic and said, "Let me double-check our system and speak with my manager."
That's exactly the right approach, calm and persistent. What was the outcome?
After about 5 minutes, the manager came out and said, "I sincerely apologize for the confusion. We had a computer glitch earlier today, and some reservations weren't saved properly. We absolutely have space for you." They seated us immediately at a beautiful booth by the window.
That worked out well. You know, while we're on the topic of arrival, let's talk about what happens if you're running late. This is crucial information.
Oh yes. I actually had to do this once. If you're going to be more than 10 minutes late, you should call the restaurant. I had to say, "Hello, I have a reservation at 7 p.m. under Sarah. I'm running about 15 minutes late due to traffic. Is that okay?"
That's very considerate. Most restaurants will hold your table for 15 to 20 minutes, but calling shows respect. What if you need to cancel?
Always call as soon as you know you can't make it. Say something like, "I'm sorry, but I need to cancel my reservation for tonight at 7 p.m. under Sarah. Something urgent has come up." They usually appreciate the notice.
Absolutely. Now, once you were seated, how did the ordering process begin?
The server came over within a few minutes and introduced himself. He said, "Good evening, I'm David, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" I had prepared for this moment, but I still felt nervous.
Let's talk about drink ordering in more detail. There are so many options and ways to order. What are some common phrases?
For water, you might hear still, sparkling, or tap. Still means regular bottled water, sparkling is carbonated, and tap is from the faucet. I usually say, "Tap water is fine, thank you. It's free and perfectly good."
Good tip. What about alcoholic beverages?
If you're not sure about wine, you can ask, "What wine would you recommend with the salmon?" For beer, you might ask, "What do you have on tap?" which means draft beer. Or, "Do you have any local beers?" Always remember to have your ID ready. They often check.
That's important. Now, you mentioned you wanted to order wine but were worried about pronunciation. What did you do?
I wanted to order wine, but I wasn't confident about pronouncing the Italian names. So I used a strategy I had learned. I asked for a recommendation. I said, "Could you recommend a good red wine that pairs well with pasta?" David was so helpful.
That's brilliant. Asking for recommendations is such a useful strategy. It shows trust in the server's expertise and takes the pressure off pronunciation. What did he suggest?
He suggested a Chianti Classico and explained, This is a medium-bodied red wine from Tuscany. It has nice cherry flavors and won't overpower your pasta. Then he asked, would you like to try a small taste before I pour a full glass? I said yes, and it was perfect.
That's great service. Wine tasting before ordering is common in Nice restaurants. Now, what about food? Did you have any dietary restrictions to mention?
Actually, yes. My friend Emma is vegetarian, and she also has a dairy allergy. When David came back for our food order, Emma said, I'm vegetarian, and I'm also allergic to dairy products. What options do you have for me? I was impressed by how directly she stated her needs.
That's exactly how to handle dietary restrictions, clear and direct. Let's practice some other dietary phrases. What if someone is gluten-free?
You'd say, I need to avoid gluten. Do you have gluten-free options? Or for other allergies, I'm severely allergic to shellfish. Can you ensure my meal doesn't come in contact with any? The word, severely, emphasizes it's serious.
Excellent examples. What about religious dietary restrictions?
You can say, I follow a halal diet, or I keep kosher, or I don't eat pork for religious reasons. Most restaurants in diverse areas understand these requirements and can guide you to appropriate dishes.
Perfect. Now, let's go back to your ordering. What did you end up choosing?
I was torn between two dishes, so I used another phrase I had learned. I asked David, what's your most popular pasta dish? He immediately said, the lobster ravioli is our signature dish. It's made fresh daily with Maine lobster and served in a light cream sauce. That sold me immediately.
Smart questioning. Let me share some other useful ordering phrases. You can ask, how is the chicken prepared? Or, is the fish grilled or fried? Or, does this come with any sides?
Yes. And if you want to know about portion sizes, you can ask, is this enough for one person, or is it meant to share? I once ordered an appetizer thinking it was an entree because I didn't ask.
That's a common mistake. Speaking of appetizers, let's clarify menu sections for our listeners.
Great idea. Appetizers or starters are small dishes before the main course. Entrees or mains are the main dishes. Sides are additional items like vegetables or potatoes. And desserts come at the end, of course.
Exactly. Now, you placed your orders. Did everything go smoothly from there?
Well, that's where our real adventure began. We waited about 20 minutes, which seemed reasonable for fresh pasta. But when our dishes arrived, there was a problem. My lobster ravioli was lukewarm, and Emma's arrabbiata was way too spicy. Like, tears in your eyes spicy.
Oh dear. That's disappointing. This is where complaint skills become really important. How did you handle it?
I was honestly nervous about complaining because I didn't want to seem rude. But I knew we had to say something. When David came to check on us, I took a deep breath and said, I'm sorry to mention this, but my pasta seems to be lukewarm. Could you please check if it's supposed to be served hot?
That's a perfect way to phrase a complaint, polite but clear. Let's practice some other complaint scenarios. What if your order is completely wrong?
You could say, excuse me, I think there's been a mix-up. I ordered the grilled salmon, but this appears to be chicken. Always give them the benefit of the doubt. Say, mix-up, instead of, mistake.
That's diplomatic. What if the food tastes off or spoiled?
That's serious. You should say immediately, I'm concerned this might not be fresh. Could you please have the chef check? Never continue eating something that tastes spoiled. Food safety is paramount.
Absolutely. Now, back to your story. How did David respond to your lukewarm pasta?
He immediately looked concerned and said, "Oh no, that's definitely not right. Our pasta should be served steaming hot. I'm so sorry about that." He touched the plate and confirmed it was indeed too cool. Then he said, "Let me take this back to the kitchen right away and get you a fresh, hot portion."
Excellent response. What about Emma's overly spicy dish?
Emma handled it really well. She said, "I ordered the arrabbiata, but it's much spicier than I expected. I can barely eat it. Is this the normal spice level, or could there have been a mistake in the kitchen?" She was diplomatic but honest about not being able to eat it.
Perfect phrasing. How did they resolve both issues?
He was amazing. For Emma's dish, he said, "You know what? We did have a new cook in the kitchen today, and he might have been heavy-handed with the red pepper flakes. That's completely our fault. Would you like to try a different pasta dish, or would you prefer the same dish made milder?" Emma chose a different dish entirely.
Great customer service. Did the replacement dishes solve the problems?
Absolutely. My new lobster ravioli came out perfectly hot, and Emma's replacement dish, fettuccine alfredo made with dairy-free cream, was delicious. But here's the best part. David brought us complimentary garlic bread and said the manager wanted to comp our appetizer to apologize for the inconvenience.
That's how you turn a negative into a positive. Before we discuss the check, let's talk about table etiquette. Any observations from your experience?
Oh yes. I noticed several things. First, your napkin goes on your lap as soon as you sit down. If you need to leave the table, place it on your chair, not the table. And when you're finished eating, place your knife and fork together at the 4 o'clock position on your plate.
Those are important signals to the server. What about using utensils? I know that can be confusing.
The basic rule is work from the outside in. The utensils farthest from your plate are for the first course. But honestly, if you're unsure, just watch what others do or ask the server. They're used to helping.
Good advice. Now, let's talk about the end of the meal. How do you get the check?
When we were ready to leave, I said to David, "Could we have the check, please?" Some people say, "bill," instead of check, both are fine. He brought it over in a leather folder, and that's when I started calculating in my head.
Let's break down tipping for our listeners. The standard in the US is 15 to 20% for good service. How do you calculate that quickly?
The bill came to $78 before tax. I had learned a quick trick for calculating 20%. You move the decimal point one place to the left, which gives you $7.80, then double it to get $15.60. For 15%, you can calculate 10% and add half of that.
That's brilliant, but you mentioned being confused about tipping on comped items?
Yes. I quietly asked Emma, and she said that since the service recovery was so excellent, I should tip on what the original bill would have been. So I calculated 20% on the full amount, which was about $18. Given the exceptional service recovery, I felt it was appropriate to be generous.
That's very thoughtful. Let's talk about different payment methods. How did you pay?
I paid with my credit card. When David brought back the receipt to sign, there were 2 lines, one for the tip amount and one for the total. I wrote $18 on the tip line and calculated the new total. Always double-check your math.
Good tip about double-checking. What if you're paying cash?
With cash, you can either leave the tip on the table or hand it directly to the server. If your bill is $78 and you give them $100, you might say, "Keep the change," if you want them to keep all $22, or "I just need $5 back," if you want to leave a $17 tip.
Perfect examples. Now, what about splitting the bill with friends?
Great question. When the server asks, "Will this be together or separate?" you can say, "Separate, please," for individual checks. Or, "Together, but could we split it evenly between 2 cards?" Some places might say they can't split bills, so it's good to ask beforehand.
That's really helpful. Before we wrap up, let's talk about different types of restaurants and how tipping changes.
Yes. At fast casual places where you order at a counter, tipping is usually optional, maybe 10% or just the change. But at cafes with table service, 15 to 18% is standard. Fine dining is typically 20% or more.
What about buffets or all-you-can-eat places?
Good question. Even though you're serving yourself food, servers still bring drinks and clear plates. I usually tip 10 to 15% at buffets. The amount depends on how much service they provide.
That makes sense. What about takeout or delivery?
For takeout, I usually tip 10 to 15% if there's a tip jar or if they provide extra service like packing special requests. For delivery, I always tip at least 18 to 20%, especially in bad weather or if they have to climb stairs to my apartment. Delivery drivers work really hard.
Those are excellent guidelines. Now, let's do a quick review of key phrases our listeners should remember.
Great idea. For reservations, I'd like to make a reservation for number, people at time. For ordering, could I have the dish name, please? Or, what do you recommend?
For dietary restrictions, I'm allergic to ingredient, or I'm vegetarian. For problems, excuse me, but there seems to be an issue with my order.
And for the check, could we have the check, please? And remember, when in doubt, just ask, "Could you explain this menu item?" Or, "I'm not familiar with this. Could you help me?"
Perfect. Any final advice for someone who's still nervous about dining out in English?
My biggest advice is don't be afraid to ask questions or ask for clarification. Say things like, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Or, "Could you explain what this dish is?" Restaurant staff deal with customers from all over the world, so they're used to helping with language barriers.
Also, remember that making mistakes is okay. I once accidentally ordered 3 appetizers thinking they were different types of the same dish. The server kindly clarified, and we all had a good laugh.
Exactly. And remember, even if you make mistakes, it's all part of the learning process. Don't let fear stop you from enjoying great food and experiences. Practice these phrases, start with casual restaurants, and build your confidence.
One more thing. Many restaurants now have online menus. Looking at these beforehand can really help you prepare and feel more confident.
That's a fantastic tip. You can look up unfamiliar words and even decide what to order before you go. It takes so much pressure off.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you all for joining us on Restaurant Experiences. We hope these tips, stories, and practice sessions help you feel more confident the next time you dine out.
Next time, we'll be talking about shopping experiences, from grocery stores to department stores. We'll cover everything from asking for help to returning items. Until then, happy dining everyone.
Thanks for listening, and remember, every meal is a chance to practice and improve your English. Don't be afraid to get out there and try.
See you next time, and bon appétit.